Alright,
That's so
let's get to chapter 17. This is where we're going to have Quote Ballet, or if you're interested in trialing Quote Ballet, this will be useful. Well, we're going to do an overview of this for you guys. So, in Quote Ballet, obviously you're going to need credentials from QuoteWerks. They're going to be entered under your Tools Options menu, and then the Cloud Account tab. And then you'll get credentials from us, which you'll put in here, and then you can test and make sure they work. Once it confirms that they're working, you'll click on the Quote LA setup. So there's a couple things that you'll want to do just kind of by default. If you guys are already using this, then you probably won't need to do this, but we're going to go over some of the options just so you're aware of what it can do. Use for peer reviews. This is if you want to use Quote LA to have other users kind of review your documents in QuoteWerks. So if you share quotes between users, and maybe you want someone to look it over, make sure you didn't forget to include anything. We have the peer reviews, and you can actually do this with Quote Ballet. So if someone's out of the office, they can actually open up the quote via Quote Ballet instead of having to log into QuoteWerks to view the quote.
How'd you get here? I'm sorry, I missed how you got here.
Oh yeah, no problem. It's Tools Options,
Tools Options.
and then click on the Cloud Account tab,
Thank you.
and then the Quote Ballet setup. And then obviously if you don't have credentials, you can just look at my screen and see this information here. The use for approval requests, we're going to go over approvals in QuoteWerks, but this is if you require management approval when you send out a quote to a customer. So if a customer, if your document says, hey, you're under a certain margin or over a certain margin, or a line item is too expensive or too inexpensive, then it requires management approval before it can be sent to the customer. You can do the approval through Quote Ballet as well with this setting. The allow regular documents to be imported through Quote Ballet. This is similar to, it's kind of like a manual sync, where if you're a remote user, you're out in the field and you create a document in Quote Ballet and you need to be able to, someone else in the office needs to be able to pull that in. With this checked, we'll actually be able to run kind of like a synchronization through Quote Ballet, where anyone who's not connected to the network and has created a quote, their quotes can actually be pulled into the master installation by someone in the office via Quote Ballet. So you actually be able to import their quotes into QuoteWerks.
So is Quote Ballet really primarily for remote users? Like if all 2 or 3 or 4, how many people are in-house, what's the benefit of Quote Ballet?
Quote Ballet gives you notifications about what your customers are doing with the quote. So when you send a quote to a customer and they click on the quote for the first time, you get an email notifying you that they viewed the quote for the first time. So it's basically giving you insight into when they viewed it, if they've accepted it, if they've made payment, if they posted a comment, things like that. Just makes it easier for them to move forward, basically. It also can get around spam filters, because since you're not sending a PDF document, a lot of spam filters now, if there's an attachment, they don't even let it go through. A lot of them just go straight to spam, or they just delete it. Here, when we started using Quote Ballet internally, before we even released it, we saw like a 20% jump in people just actually receiving our quotes because they weren't getting blocked by spam anymore. So it's a good way to get around spam, especially if you have larger proposal documents. This is a really good way to get around that, because we just send that link, customer clicks on the link, it opens up the quote, and then they'll be able to see the PDF in Quote Ballet. And I'm going to upload a document to Quote Ballet so you can see how that looks.
It's like a Dropbox.
Similar, yeah.
We've had really good success with it, in the fact that it's less interaction back and forth with the customer. It's like, yes, I accept, is this right, is that right? It's like, here it is, here's everything, they accept it, you're done. So there's no calling, there's no emails back and forth. I kind of like it when you get really busy. You can just start sending them out, and they just start coming back. It's like a no-brainer. Instead of having to actually read it, you have to go back and quote, back in QuoteWerks and create an invoice, and it's like it's already the procedure's already started. It's really nice.
This checkbox here, prompt to convert to order. This is set for you by default, but you can turn this off. What this basically means is that every time a customer has accepted a quote, when you open that quote in QuoteWerks checks Quote Ballet for the updates, and it'll convert it to an order if the customer has accepted it for you, or it'll actually prompt you and ask you if you want to convert it to an order. So this is useful because it basically just starts to get you to go through the purchasing side of things to close the quote in QuoteWerks. So you can turn it off if you want to, but you don't have to.
So that's where I was running into the issue of template.
So,
It was going to the generic template because of that being checked. And we're saying yes to
yes.
that.
Now you're probably going to want it to convert to order anyway because that's how we close the quote. But if you wanted to turn it off and say no, I want to manually do it, then you can just check that. The templates, these are all done in HTML. I do not know HTML, so I cannot help you with customizations. Michael Richter back there would be more than happy to answer any questions about templates in Quote Ballet. So if you have specific questions about what's possible, what's not possible, or how to change things, he'd definitely be the person to ask. Like I said, it's all done in HTML, so really unless you're asking for something crazy, it can probably handle it.
Why is it different than the templates you already have?
Because it's web enabled. Yeah. It has to be in HTML, or it would be a static document. Your site files tab is just going to be the default files in the templates, so like your logo, the top banner, and the customization sheet. Again, you can go into more detail with someone else. Payment processing, this is where you would set up your gateway. So like I said, we support about 80 different gateways. There's a list of them on our website, but you can simply add a new one by clicking on the new gateway. We do support credit cards and PayPal, so if you're using one or two or both, you'll be able to set that up here. This payment confirmation message is what's going to show up when the customer has made payment, so you can customize that if you'd like to.
And if we don't do online payment processing, we just invoice or check payment, we can do it that way too.
Yeah, because the customer can still sign off on it, and it'll just bring them to a screen, and I'm going to walk through that.
Okay.
It'll just bring them to a screen that says, hey, you've accepted the quote, and you'll get an email notifying you that the customer accepted the quote, so that you know to follow up with that.
Then we would have to send them the actual invoice.
Correct. Upload letterhead logo. This quick start tab is if you just want to use the default QuoteWerks Quote Ballet template that comes with it, or just upload your logo. You can do that right here, so you can be up and running, in just a couple of minutes. The activity notifications. This is extremely useful if you have someone who's maybe specifically responsible for processing orders. You can actually specify that they're CC'd or BCC'd on a notification for specific activities, such as when a customer accepts a quote or when a payment is received. So you can make sure that they are also getting those notifications. So you can actually choose if anyone, so let's say when a quote's accepted, we have someone who's for purchasing, it's going to be Jen is responsible in purchasing, or I'm sorry, when it's anyone in inside sales creates a document, and then Jen is going to get an email if any inside sales documents are accepted, because she's the one who's responsible for processing or collecting payment or whatever her job duty is. So this is where you can actually specify who receives which notifications. As the sales rep, you're always going to receive your notifications. You'll always receive when they view it for the first time, post a comment, accept it, make payment. But if you want someone else to be on those notifications, this is where you can set that up. And you can see it's a CC list or a BCC list. These are all internal documents, so the customer will never see them, so you can probably use the CC unless you don't want the other users to know that someone's CC'd on it. And then the resource security tab, this is if you want to limit who has access to Quote Ballet Web. If you don't want someone on a specific IP or someone out of a specific user not to be able to access Quote Ballet Web, which is the reporting engine for Quote Ballet. So I'll show you what Quote Ballet Web looks like here in just a moment. So the setup is pretty straightforward. Like I said, the most important thing is going to be getting your layouts the way you want them to look. Like I said, it's just an HTML editor. So I have a quote here. I'm ready to send it to my customer in Quote Ballet. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to click on Deliver. And you're going to select your layout just like you would normally send a PDF. So just like you're going to send the customer a PDF, you're still going to select the layout, still going to select the cover page, your literature documentation, spec sheets, links, tabs, all that information, because we're going to include that in the PDF that we send to the customer. So we're going to go ahead and select our layout. And then we're going to choose Upload to Quote Ballet. And if you've made any changes, it's going to ask you to, it's going to prompt you to make changes. And then this is going to prompt you, first you can view the PDF file. So if you want to view what the PDF is going to look like before you send it to the customer, you can view that information. So we can say, okay, that looks great, customer's definitely gonna sign off on that. And then this is where you choose the Quote Valet layout. Now you'll probably only have one or two in here. I have a couple different ones available. The default one is gonna be the customer facing, so I'm gonna show you guys this one. So we're gonna choose Upload to Quote Valet, and then we're gonna preview it. Now the preview you can see here is going to be an internal view of the document. This is not going to count as a view of the document. So it's basically going to say, hey, this is what it would look like to your customer, and even pops up a message saying, hey, this page is a representation of what your customer will see. Do not send this URL to your customer because it is a untracked URL. We want to send them the tracked URL so we know when they're looking at it. So the document itself is all customizable. You can put your own banner up here, put your own logo, change colors, change the font. All that information is all customizable. If you have a picture, it's going to show up here on the top as well. You can see this PDF document. If I click on it, I can actually open up this PDF in my web browser. So if you do have service contracts or warranty information or just anything that the customer wants to print out, they'll be able to get the PDF that you're trying to send them and print it out. Now down here, this is where Quote Valet can be extremely useful, and it's one of my favorite features in Quote Valet, is that it becomes a dynamic document for the customer, where the customer can actually go through and select the options that they want. So now I have a couple different things in here. I have under services, the customer can choose either the gold subscription or the silver subscription. And you can see it's a radial button. I have to choose one of them, and I'll show you how to set that up here in just a minute using those line attributes. But this is where you can choose, or the customer can choose which one they want. Your optional items, you can actually uncheck, or they can choose to include them. So the customer can actually go through, choose which optional items they want, and then it's going to update our total. So you can see it was at almost $4,100 before tax and shipping. Now it's at $3,800. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add this item, and you can see now it updates. So the customer can actually go through and update and choose which items they want to select on the document.
How do they know what the difference is? So they can click on it or they give a description?
No, you would just have to put more of a description in there. Yeah, this is, if you go back here to our quote, that's all I put in the description.
Oh, okay.
But you could change it so you could actually put in more information. Like, it has this and it includes this and includes this. All that's going to be supported.
Can the customer just change quantity?
Yes. I almost skipped that part. Yeah, you can actually set it up where the customer is able to change the quantity on the document. We have I think it's a 4-minute video that'll show you exactly where to go in the template to make that change. It's very simple. I don't know HTML.
I can send you an email with the exact HTML.
Down here, your payment options. So I have mine set up where the customer can pay via credit card or terms. If you're offering leasing payment options, those will show up here as well. So the customer can actually select a lease payment to make instead. And then when they're ready to order or make payment, they can actually sign off on the document, or if they have comments, they can post comments here. Now this was just the representation of the document. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of there, and we're going to go to the actual customer document. Re-upload it, and we'll do send email. So when we click on send email, you'll see there is no attachment. We're just sending the customer our link to the quote, and that's all they're going to get from us to view that quote in Quote Valet. Again, the email templates, as we talked about, you can change. So I don't have email set up on this machine, so I'm just going to copy the link out, and then we'll open it. Alright, so now I got an email notifying me that my customer viewed the quote for the first time, because this is a live one, and then the customer could go through and actually make payment. They could accept it. If they have a comment, they can post a comment here. And then that's going to post a comment here with the sales rep or the customer's name. So you can see that the customer posted the comment. And then on the QuoteWerks side, if you wanted to respond to that comment, you'll see there's a Quote Valet tab available now. And this will actually say View Sales Rep Facing Page. And then you log in using your QuoteWerks credentials. So this will typically be filled out for you.
Brandon, I'm about 5 steps behind you. Maybe 6. From the preview,
where did you go? There's a big warning that says, warning, this page is a representation of
Right.
what your customer will see.
So-
Do not send this. So what do you do?
If you close out of the preview and you go back to QuoteWerks, you'll see that the fourth step in that Quote Valley window says send email.
Can you just do your QuoteWerks?
Should be a button that says send email.
Okay.
And then what I did is, because I don't have email set up on here, I can't email it to myself. But the send email is how you would send it to your customer. And then when you click on that, that's going to bring them to this customer-facing quote, the actual track URL.
So Brandon, if the customer chooses to pay by credit card,
So
they would have to, and you didn't have it, they would enter it in the comments? Is that the credit card information?
We don't recommend that because it's not PCI compliant.
Yeah.
Technically, there's nothing stopping the customer from doing that. Like I said, we're not going to recommend that you tell them to do that, but if the customer says, hey, I'm just going to put my credit card in there and just process it, you can't really stop them from doing it, you know? So, but yeah, what will happen is if you've set up a payment gateway with QuoteWerks, once the customer accepts it, it will bring you to a payment screen that is actually secure and they can make payment through, and they can put in their credentials through there. So if we go to the customer or the sales rep facing side, I logged in like I logged into QuoteWerks, just using my QuoteWerks credentials. So my same QuoteWerks username, my same QuoteWerks password to log into Quote Valley. And then you can respond to your customer here. So if you want to post a response, you can post it here, and it'll post on Quote Valley, and it sends an email to them as well. And it'll CC you on the email so you know that the response did go through. So we close out of there. If you need to re-email the customer notification, you know, maybe you closed out or the customer said they didn't get it, just click on the re-email customer notification. That'll open up the email window and you can resend it. If you need to pull the quote down, maybe the customer, maybe you forgot to include sales tax, the item is wrong, maybe you forgot to mark up an item, you can actually recall the quote, which will temporarily pull the quote down so the customer can't accept it. And you can even put a messaging, so we'll say, you know, need to update pricing. So that'll tell me my quote has been recalled, and then if you look at the customer facing page, this is what the customer sees when they click on the link. It says, hey, this quote has been recalled by this sales rep, so they have your contact information, and then it just says need to update pricing. And then the really nice thing about Quote Valley is you go into your quote, you make the change, and then you just need to re-upload it to Quote Valley for the changes to take effect. So if I said, okay, you know, they're actually supposed to get 3 of these, and 2 of these, and 2 of these. All right, let me go ahead and resend this to them. I don't even have to re-email them the quote if I don't want to. I can just click on the Express Mode button. That'll save it and re-upload your document using all your previous settings. And it has the updates for the customer. And so you can just tell the customer, hey, just click on the email again, or you can resend the email, it's up to you. We typically will just resend the email, say, hey, here's your link, so that the customer doesn't have to search for it. That's the easiest way to do it.
Now, when the customer makes changes on it, that doesn't automatically update it in QuoteWerks.
It does, actually. Yeah, so what will happen is if you have the quote open and the customer makes a change, if you click on the Quote Valley tab, it'll actually open up a message box saying, hey, customer selected this option. And it'll change the settings in your QuoteWerks document.
But if you want to change it, you don't go on the Quote Valley, you have to go back to the quote.
You could do it with Quote Valley if you wanted to.
Is that what you just did?
Yeah.
okay, so they've accepted it and sent it back to you.
Alright, so let's go to the customer side here. And so they can put in a PO number if they'd like to. Comments. And so they accept it. And then if you don't have a credit card payment set up, this Pay Now button's not going to be here. If you don't have PayPal or credit card, this is the screen you'll see, but this button just won't be there. Also, if you don't set a deposit on your quotes, this button won't show up. Even if you accept credit card payments, This is not gonna show up unless you set a deposit, because you have to tell QuoteWerks how much money you wanna get from your customer. So you'll get an email notifying you that the customer accepted the quote. Once they have accepted it, if they wanna make payment, they can click on the Pay Now button, and then this brings them to the payment screen. It's very straightforward, where they can put in their card type, all the information they need, and then you'll see the payment history. So if they are doing like a deposit, and they put 25% down, once they make that payment, it'll actually show up here, hey, they paid this much on this date, and it's basically this for them to see and for you to see that, so you can see kind of where they are in the balance.
Can they change or pay a different amount?
No, it's already going to be specified for that.
Okay, let's, so whether they pay or not, let's say they don't pay, but you get it, you go back to your dashboard, and you have a message that says they've accepted it. And then there's some choices on there. There's 4 choices. What do we do there?
So, if you open an accepted document, this is the message that's going to pop up. It's basically going to say the quote has been updated with options customer selected, and then this is just telling me what the customer changed. And then if I hit OK,
Oh, God.
I forgot that happens because I have my volume turned off.
Cha-ching.
So this is going to show you that the document has been accepted by the customer. It'll show you their information, when it was accepted, what IP address, their PO number, and any comments they made. So you'll see all this here. If you remember,
Now that check mark means they actually paid, right? That's,
no, that just means they accepted.
because now mine doesn't have that. Well, maybe it does. It has a little time. Is that it?
No, you're on the dashboard, not the document, so you minimize that.
Okay.
And then, is this a document now? So you have
Yeah.
to close out of it and reopen it.
But you'll see on this convert quote to an order, you'll see there's a little message that says quote was accepted through Quote Valley. So this is what's popping up automatically. This is the same window that pops up if you go to File, Convert to Order. We're just automating it. It's that little checkbox that we set when you're setting up your This is where that setting is important, where if you are offering your customer optional items, that you can basically say, hey, remove those non-selected optional items from the quote, so everything stays true to what the customer ordered and what they paid for and what your order is going to say in QuoteWerks. Any questions up to this point? Alright, so I converted my quote to an order. If the customer has made any payments, you'll actually see the payment history here. So you'll see if they made payment, if their payment failed, if they made partial payment, that information will be here. If they're going to send you a check, you can do what's called make payment by proxy, where basically you accept a payment manually. So you're basically saying, telling QuoteWerks, hey, we received their payment. So we're going to say, they gave us a wire transfer.
How did you get that little screen there?
Click on the make payment by proxy right there.
So that's only if you want to track payment in Quote Valley. If we're using QuickBooks or whatever and they're paying through an invoice, that way it won't backfill into Quote Valley.
Correct.
You have to manually update it.
Now what you can do is we can actually export payments to QuickBooks. So if they're going to send you a check or something like that, before you've exported your document to QuickBooks, you could do make payment by proxy here, say you received the payment, and we'll export the payment to QuickBooks for you.
Can you post date, like can you say the payment's going to come 4 days from now, or is it effective today?
Yeah, you should be able to.
You can, okay.
I would test first.
Right, right.
Because I've never done that, but yeah, it looks like you should be able to. And then once you make payment, it'll tell you, hey, total payments made and how it's paid. And that's actually why we have all those fields when you do make payment by proxy, because those are all required by QuickBooks to have all those fields. Okay. Any questions about QuoteWerks and Quote Valley up to this point? If your customer accepts the quote and then they say, we don't want to pay this, and you're going to issue them a new quote, you can't unaccept the quote. Once customers accept it, there's not a way to do that. So what you can do is you can delete it from Quote Valley. That's really the only way to get rid of it. Essentially, It is a binding, legally binding contract because the customer electronically signs it, and we send them a copy, we send you a copy, so you're essentially both bound by it. Obviously, with most people, 99% of the time, if they're they're like, oh, actually I didn't want that, you say, okay, no problem, and we'll just issue you a new quote. So, when that happens, just do the delete from Quote Valley, that'll just pull it down from Quote Valley and then delete the QuoteWerks document, or you can even just do file duplicate and then just make a change within it. Okay, so one thing I want to show you is that when you're using Quote Valley, then you're also going to have access to Quote Valley Web. And Quote Valley Web is the reporting engine for Quote Valley. You're clicking launch Quote Valley Web, and you log in using your account credentials. Now I was already logged in, so it already knew that, so it brings me to my Quote Valley screen. So this is going to give you a little more in-depth information about your documents in Quote Valley. The first one under your dashboard is going to show you your inbox. So it's going to show you all your quotes, but you can also change sales reps as well. Again, this is going to be specific to your security settings in QuoteWerks, whose documents you're able to see. Peer reviews, if you're doing any peer reviews or you have any pending peer reviews, those are going to show up here as well. You can see you have the option to view the page. You can see the activity history of the document. And you can send a note, which basically just sends an email, but it lets you send it from Quote Valley. The executive summary. So all the admin people, this will probably be something that you like to see. The executive summary is going to give you a summary of the documents in QuoteWerks. You can set the different date ranges, so you can see kind of how the reps are doing during a specific month. So you can see for this month we've sent out 4 quotes, 3 were accepted, 1 was paid, and then you can actually filter by the top dollar quotes, top dollar orders, how many documents were viewed, how many comments, sales rep comments, and then you can even do a comparative analysis. So if I click on quote sent, this is only going to show me in my activity down here the quotes that were sent out to the customers. If I want to see how many quotes were accepted, this will only show me my accepted quotes. If I want to see how many were paid, this will just show me how many quotes were paid. Top dollar quotes, I'm going to list the top open quotes that have the most dollar value listed here. Same thing for orders, show you your biggest orders or your largest orders here. And then if your customer's posted a comment, it'll show you which quote the customer's posted a comment. Same thing if the sales rep has posted a comment, in that case it'll be the same one. That'll show up here as well. And then the comparative analysis is going to basically show your different reps, how they compare against each other. So you can actually see that Kinsey's created 5 quotes this month for this value, and all 3 have been converted to orders. I've created 3 for like almost a third, and converted those 3 into orders, and then John's created 1, still a quote, not converted to an order yet. So it kind of gives you a snapshot of how your sales reps are doing. You obviously can change the period, and also you can sort by if you want to do the amount in the quotes, or maybe number of quotes. You can see that, and you can choose how you want to filter that in Quote Valley Web. Executive summary. The executive summary is not going to be shown by default. When we get to the utilities later on today, I'll show you how you can turn this on. So if you're using Quote Valley Web and you want to be able to see this information, that's how you can do that. If you only want to show it to the executives and not the sales reps, that's kind of what it's designed for, but it's obviously going to be up to you. Any questions up to this point? The My Summary is going to be very similar to the executive summary, except it's for your specific user in QuoteWerks. So this is going to show you kind of how you're doing in QuoteWerks, very similar to that My Summary dashboard that we showed in QuoteWerks, except this is in Quote Valley Web instead. And again, the date range is changeable. Status board. The status board will actually show you how all of your reps are doing in QuoteWerks at one point. This shows all those notifications from your different reps in QuoteWerks. So this is going to show you kind of like any notifications that are pending out for your different sales reps in QuoteWorks. This is designed to be on kind of like a TV or like a large screen that you can see it and share it with the sales team.
And there's no year-to-year comparison, it's strictly this current year?
Yeah, this will scroll here where it'll show you your top accepted quotes this week, and then the next one will be like this month, and then largest outstanding quotes and stuff like that. But it's more, at least internally, we use it for someone's out of the office. We can see that quote came in or an order came in for that, and we need to process that order so things aren't sitting there. And then your Document Explorer, this will just let you find a specific document in Quote Valley Web. So if you're out in the field and you need to view a document or approve a document, you can do that here. Same thing with Find, will let you search on a specific document. And then the admin will actually show you the usage of your users. So you can see what your users are looking at in Quote Valley Web. So if someone's looking at something they're not supposed to be looking at, you can go in there and hide it because you can see what they've actually viewed. And what they've done in Quote Valley. Any questions about Quote Valley Web? Does anyone want to or need to see Quote Valley Global? Alright, so we're going to kind of piggyback on the Quote Valley stuff now that you've seen that, and we're going to discuss. So in our quote, we had set items as optional and then what we call mutually exclusive, where the customer could select those radial buttons. So I'm going to show you how to do that here. So the first thing is I need to actually go back to my quote. So in my services here, I had set it up where the customer could select either the gold or the silver subscription. And the way I did that was by highlighting the two items, right-clicking, and choosing Edit Line Attributes. Then I set it is optional, so I set is optional to yes. Check the box for is selected, and then I assign them to an exclusive group. In this case, I called it services. And then I hit OK. And then a message is going to pop up and say, hey, you can't select two mutually exclusive options, so we're only going to select the first one. So when you assign mutually exclusive options in Quote Valley, it's automatically going to just select the first one. And it's just going to pop up a message saying, hey, you can't do that. You can't select one. So if we go into this one, we go to Edit Line Attributes, you'll see it said is optional, is selected, and in the group of services. We go to the one right below it. It's going to be the same thing except it won't be selected. So it is optional in the group but not selected. So that's how you set up the radial buttons in Quote Valley. If you just want to do the checkbox, you don't assign it to a group. You just say is optional yes, and you either check this yes or no if you want to include it in the quote, and then just leave the exclusive group as nothing.
Now, if we do that in a template, it will default in that same template when we save it as a quote later down the road.
Yeah, and that's a good question. So if you set this line attribute, or really any line attribute in a template, when you load that template, QuoteWerks is going to use those default line attributes from the template. And like I said, the ability to change quantity, that's just going to be done on your template side in Quote Valley. And we have, I think it's a 4 or 5 minute video that'll walk you through exactly how to change it so the customer can change the quantity on your quote. Any other questions about Quote Valley? We're almost done with this. We're just going to go over peer reviews and document approvals.
I need better clarification on that. I mean, that's going to do a video on that or something that can show how to do the check boxes. I was trying to follow you, but I don't have it on the demo version. I didn't want to do it on the live version. So.
Yeah, I'll go through it one more time because it's pretty straightforward, but we do have a video on it.
Okay.
So basically, if you want to do the mutually exclusive with the radial button, you highlight all the items you have that you want to be in the group, essentially. So in this case, I have 2. I have my gold and silver subscriptions that I want in my same group. And then I right-click and choose Edit Line Attributes. And then I'm going to set is optional, yes, is selected, and then just name my group. And you can call it whatever you want. You can just type in here, it's freeform, there's no limitation there. Typically, you know, if it's like you're offering 2 different warranties, you'll call it warranties. whatever you wanna call it. You could call it A if you want to call it 1, there's no, whatever you wanna call it there. And then all you have to do is hit OK.
That only shows up in Quote Valet though. If I do a quote preview, it just shows as being selected in parentheses
Right.
next to it. So there's no interaction there at all.
Correct, yeah, through the PDF, the customer has no interaction with it. They can see it, if we go to deliver preview. So this is my services, so it says optional selected, and this one just says optional, it's in green, and it's not selected. So, but yeah, the customer can't change it through the PDF only. Yeah, the mutually exclusive options, really, if you're not using quote value, you probably won't use that. You can still use the optional, where it's either included in the quote or not included.
So as far
but-
as when you're just creating that, you can just keep on going into Quote Valet and previewing it before you do the whole quote.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you can keep looking at how you're doing and how the formatting is coming out to make sure it's right for the customer and
Yep.
keep
Yeah, 'cause
generating them.
when you upload it, I can't because it's already been uploaded and
Okay.
accepted, but when you upload it, that's exactly what the preview's for, is you check it, make sure it looks good, and
And
then
that
you,
would be functional in there, at least on your local.
exactly.
Good.
And you can even change it, if you're like, oh, I selected the wrong radial button selected, you can actually select it through that Quote Valley preview, click update, and then send the quote to the customer, and it'll have the right selections for them.
How does that work with bundles? Because this option would be great for us where we have 3 separate bundles that could be an option, and there's all of those line items within that bundle. So what line do you click on to then assign that radio button?
It's gonna be the bundle header.
Okay, so where the whole, the yellow jet out.
Right, so it'll be those two, and you do edit line attributes, it is optional, yes, is selected. Customer can choose between the two.
That is,
Very nice.
and then you can also do just that gray hair like that, just not, well, without.
Absolutely.
Can you do that in the pricing as well?
In the what?
In the product, catalog, bundle, all of this under one together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what this is right here is, these are all bundled together items.
Okay, but I wanna, my importing or conference table has a top, has a page, thing. Like it all come in just with one price, but you can show it, but not individual.
Yeah, what you would do is just, you can create a default bundle. So you would just click on your bundles here. And then essentially you would do a new one, because you don't have it saved, so you would give it a name.
Oh, I couldn't do it in the actual, I've already got the catalog under in a folder. So I couldn't bundle it in the folder.
No, you have to, okay, I see what you're saying, like, you're talking about in the product list
Yeah.
bundling, no, you can't do that. Yeah, it's gonna be done through the bundles option. Last thing I wanted to mention about Quote Valet was there's gonna be 2 options for you, if you're gonna be using it for peer reviews and document approvals. Submit for peer reviews if you want to share this document with another user. In QuoteWerks, someone else that you want to view the document, say, hey, can you check on this, just make sure I didn't forget anything. And if you're using it via Quote Valet, it'll actually open up an email window, and you can choose who you want to select to send it to. And it'll send that user a link to the Quote Valet document for peer review. Like I said, I don't have email on here, but I can show you if you go to the Quote Valet tab. There's a view peer review page. And it's on your peer review mode, it's internal, and you can actually scroll down, and then the user can actually put any notes in here. The notes will be added here, and it'll also be included in the email you get. So if they say, hey, this looks good, but you remember we're including this now, that kind of stuff. You can also do it for document approvals, where basically it works the same way, except that it requires management approval before the document can be sent to the customer. And it'll work the same way, where your email window will open up, and you'll send this to your designated approver, which will already be set for you, but you can change it if you need to. And then you just hit send, and when they click on it, they'll open up their quote in Quote Valet, and then they can approve the quote. And when we get to security settings, I'll show you how you set up the document. So that's how someone will request approval. If your document doesn't require approval, the button's just not going to be there. Or it'll just let you go. It'll tell you if your document needs approval. You won't have to remember to do it. It'll say, hey, this document is missing this or needs this. It needs approval. Okay. Any questions about any of that stuff? That's a lot.
Is there a way to set those radio buttons to be conditional for other items in the quote? Like, we have different service levels, and if they click on, like, to add or remove something, it then changes the service level.
Just a one level. Okay. Alright, so yeah, actually let's go ahead and go to, we're gonna go to chapter 18, which is going to be peer reviews and document approvals. There's not much for peer reviews like you saw, that's very straightforward, but the document approval is something I want to show you because it's going to be pretty important. So we've kind of discussed how you request approval, but how you actually set up the document approvals is going to be another step. So when you're ready to set up document approvals for a user or multiple users, you're going to go to Utilities, User Maintenance, and then you want to edit the user that you want to make this change for. So in this case, we're going to say, you know, Jen needs to request approval for her document. So let's edit Jen. And then you're going to click on the Documents tab. Now, in order to make these changes, you do need to have master rights in QuoteWerks to be an admin user, so that way you can make these adjustments. And then you'll see at the very bottom here, you have your document approval settings. So the document approval settings are going to be set up, and she already has a couple defaults in here. The first one that's going to be the most important is require quote approval. That's going to basically turn the settings on. This means that she is required to seek management approval based on these different settings here. So in this case, if she has any document that's over $1,000, it requires a single standard approver. This list of standard approvers is right here. The list of escalated approvers is right below it. You can change the list of standard approvers by clicking on the change button, and you can select from different QuoteWerks users who is going to be an approver. Typically, it's going to be like sales manager or some type of management executive is going to be who's approver. You can see there's multiple levels, so you could even say when document is over $5,000, it's going to require multiple standard approvals. So it's also going to require the administrator approval. So if it's over $1,000, a single standard means either the administrator or Brandon can approve this document. When it's over $5,000, it means at least 2 of these people need to approve. And then if document is over $10,000, maybe it's a single escalated approval. And maybe it's John Sales. John Sales or VP of Sales. And so John Sales is the one who actually has to approve the document if it's over $10,000. So these are the different document levels. You can also do it based on the margin. So if a document has too high of a margin, which a lot of people say that's impossible, you can never have too high of a margin. But if you're selling to like government contracts and things like that, there is a limit on how much you can overcharge the government, which seems kind of backwards. But so if you're saying the document margin is under 5%, okay, obviously you don't want to take a loss on your document, so you can kind of keep it from that. You're getting at least 1% or at least 2% on your document before it's sent out to the customer. If the document is over, maybe 50%, say something is seriously wrong, we never have documents that are this high on the margin. Someone needs to review this before it's sent out to the customer. So you can set it up so that you're always at least kind of in a protected level, that you're not sending out documents where you're losing money ever, but with this setting. You can also do it based on an item, and again, it's going to be the same thing. If any single line item is under a certain percentage, or any single line margin is over a certain percentage, it requires approval before it can be sent out to the customer. And then these are the different restrictions where basically if you don't want the user to do anything, you'll just check them all. So they won't be allowed to email it to the customer, they can't print it, which means they can't save it as a PDF. They can't upload it to Quote Valet, they can't save it to the PDF, can't convert it to an order, and they can't convert to invoice. So basically they can create the document, they can save it, and that's it. Until it's been approved, they can't really do anything else. They can make changes if they need to. So that's what all the restrictions will let them do, or not let them do, I guess.
But if it's under 1,000, they should be able to do all of that, correct? Regardless of those settings?
Yeah, I mean, if it falls in the criteria,
Then it's all still okay.
right. Yeah,
So
it
if it's
won't
under $1,000 in your scenario there, they could still create, send it out in Quote Valet.
correct.
Do you have to do that for every user, or can you say apply to all?
Very good question. Yes, you can actually create a profile. That's what this setting is up here at the top. So if we go back to our user maintenance screen, you'll see there's a profiles tab. And if you click on the profiles, this has, in this case, 2. We're going to go ahead and create a new one, so we're going to click on the gold button or the star button, depending on
So
which
we have
colors are.
to do the profile first before we do this?
Yeah, if you're going to do it for more than one user, you'll go ahead and do a profile first. So you put in your new profile name, so call this our training approval, require quote approval, and then you just set your defaults.
Start over again?
Alright, so we would start at utilities, user maintenance,
Yeah.
and then you'll see the
Oh,
profiles
I
tab.
see. Yep.
And then the gold button is, or the star button, depending on your colors, is going to be create new.
Yep.
The C will be clone, the E will be edit, and the X will be delete.
Okay.
So if you create a new one, first thing you need to do is give it a name. So like I said, we're going to call ours training approval. Maybe so. And then next step, you need to require quote approval. If you don't check this, you're not really doing anything except kind of wasting your time because you're just creating a profile for no reason. So require quote approval, and then the next step is going to be start setting your different approval levels or whatever you need to set here. So when the document amount is over $1,000, it's going to require what type of approval? Single standard. Who's your single standard? It's going to be our administrator and Brandon. Those are our 2 standard approvals. If it's over 15,000, our VP of sales is our escalated. He's the one who needs to sign off on it. So we're going to go to escalated approvers and do change, and we're going to set John Sales to our escalated approvers. We always want to make sure that we're not underselling ourselves, so we're going to say, hey, if your document margin is under 10%, you need a single standard approval. And that way it can just catch things if people forget to mark up something, you know, they're not doing anything to be malicious, it just happens. So you can always kind of check it that way, you can give kind of a minimum margin, make sure it's set. You also can do that when any single line item, and that's actually what I'd recommend if you're trying to combat that. Like saying, hey, if any single line item, any specific item on the document is less than 10% or whatever your minimum you want it to be, 5% margin, it requires approval before it can be sent to the customer. And then you set your different restrictions, and then you hit OK. And then we can go back to our user.
But you didn't apply to everybody yet, you just set it up.
Just set it up, saved it, that's it. So now I can go to my user, so let's go to Jen, go edit Jen, and we're going to go to documents, we're going to go to document approval settings, and now we're going to say, okay, get it from a profile instead, and then just select the profile. And then I can edit the training profile from here, but you can't create new ones. So if you need to make some minor adjustments, you can do that, but you can't change it, or you can't create a brand new one from the profile, so you have to go to the profiles tab. And then I can hit OK. Now, once you've set document approvals on one person, you can apply that to other users using the Apply To tab. So here I can actually say, okay, that's on my document approval settings. So I check that box, select users, group and copy, and I want to apply it to everyone on inside sales. And then I'll just say, hey, Are you sure you want to do that? And then go ahead and copy it. So when Jen creates a quote, she's going to need to request approval if her document is over $1,000, I think. So let's go ahead and we're going to log in as Jen. So we're in here as Jen. She's going to create a quote. She saves it, everything looks good, she's ready to send it to the customer. And this message pops up and says, hey, your approval, management approval is required for this because it's over $1,000. So this is who she can send it to, either administrator or Brandon. So she's going to request approval. That's just looking for a picture, that's why I got my message popped up. And this is going to show the email addresses that which approver she wants. Either one is fine. It's going to populate for her automatically, and then you can see the link here. Now, I can't send this to the customer, or I can't send this to myself, but if I go in, I can actually approve this document, and approving a document manually is very simple. If I go to open, let's go to so this is Jen's document. See, there's Jen's document, and she needs approval, so I can approve it manually. File, approve quote. Very simple to approve. It's not supposed to be difficult, it's just supposed to be something that you can do. And when you approve it, this email window will pop up, so you can email the rep and say, hey, your quote's been approved. If you're out of the office, that's when it's nice to have it via Quote Valley, because you'll get that Quote Valley link, and you can actually approve it via Quote Valley. You can do it from your phone, you can do it from a tablet, anywhere with internet access, to approve the document before it's sent to the customer. Any questions about document approvals? No? Okay. All right, why don't we go ahead and pause here for a